Okay guys, we're on Project Mom's car, which is our 2002 Pontiac Grand Am SC that we're building for my mother. Today, we've got a couple things we need to do because it's getting ready to go to vacation time. We got to get the center hub bearing changed today because this side's making noise, and occasionally I'll get a code for wheel speed sensor fault. And this car, the speed sensor is part of the hub, so if you have this problem, you got to change the entire hub assembly. This tie rod end smoked, so we got to get this tie rod end done. We're doing both sides, but I'm only going to film one side. So there's your connector for your wheel speed sensor back there. We got to get that unplugged. We got to get our brake pulled and hung. We got to get that nut off. We got to get the axle shoved back. Then I think this is one of those where you got the 3 bolts in it, so you'll have one at the top of the knuckle and then one on the bottom on each side. So it's your standard GM setup. So guess I'll bring you along so you can see how we do it and see how much of an utter pain in the neck it's going to be to get this tie rod end loose. I can already tell you, looking at that nut back there, that we're in for a long day, because that nut looks almost like it's part of tie rod end. So I don't know. So let me go grab some tools. We'll get our brake hung, and we'll get the axle shoved back, and we'll start getting this tore apart. So grab some tools and we'll get started. Alright, so we're going to do this a little differently. Usually what you do is you just go ahead and separate the caliper from the bracket and then take the bracket off so you can get the rotor off. We're going to leave this on. We're just going to take it off as a unit. Alright, so it's going to be a 13mm on them bolts. Should come apart pretty easily since we just did brakes on the last video. We probably ought to spray the center. We're using our PB blaster today since we actually have some now. I'm going to give our coil a break because we're running low on it. So let's go ahead and get these bolts loose. Like I said, they should come off pretty easily since we just had this apart. I haven't driven it very far since we put brakes on it. I drove it far enough to figure out that the hub bearing's making noise. Now when you're checking front hub bearings on a front wheel drive, you can either pull it off and then check it, or get it in neutral, take the wheel and spin it, which is probably the better way to do it. So there's a couple different ways you can check these. If they make any grinding noises, then you know what's going on. So hold your caliper in place. Actually, before we do anything further than that, we need to pull our caliper back so that we can get it off the car, because we want to get it off. See, we can get it off the rotor now. Let's put a nut on our rotor just temporarily. Don't mind the creaking door. That's just my shed door over there, because we're up in the lube bay today. So I didn't feel like working in the shop because the sun's over there and it's warm today, and I don't want to deal with the heat and everything. That, and it makes filming hard because your camera, or my camera, likes to go into overheating mode and you lose a ton of footage. So there we go. We got our caliper bracket and our caliper off. We'll hang that up here, out of the way. Take our lug nut back off. And we'll take our rotor back off, and then we can start working on getting our bearing out. So we'll set our rotor off from the back there out of the way. Then you get that center nut out. Yep, you got a bolt here, and you got a bolt down here, and then you got a bolt on the opposite corner. Typical GM stuff. Looks like they're fairly easy to get to. Yep, they're actually easy to get to on this car, which I'm surprised, because a lot of these GMs, they're really hard to get to. Especially if you've ever done one on a 1500 Silverado. Those things are an absolute neck pain to get to. Let's see if it's 32. Nope, bigger than a 32. 36. This is 34. It's a 36, everybody. See, 36 millimeter. Like a glove. Put our gun in maximum tilt mode. Get this nut broke off of here. That was easy. We'll set that right there. It's smoking, so we don't want to, Go grab my hammer and we'll smack that axle back. Make sure we get it disengaged from the splines. And I think those are going to be either 13 or 15 millimeter on them hub bolts. So I like to go to the easiest one, which is usually the lower corner. Alright, so let's see if we get these bolts broke free before I have to get crazy on it. Okay, we need to get a short extension so we can get past this. Alright, so let me go grab my hammer and a couple extensions and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got just your basic hammer. We don't need the sledgehammer for this one. And then I got a 6-inch extension. That way we can get in there, get back in there, because this can be a bit of a pain to get to. And I got my 13 swivel socket, so we can be able to get into those hard to reach places. So oh, that thing wants to be a real pain in the butt. Okay, well, we'll spray it down. Make sure that we get that sprayed down. While we're working on that loosening up, let's go ahead and get our bolts out so we can keep going. We got other stuff we got to get done today. We got to get this tie rod changed today too, so that'll be in a separate video where I do tie rod ends. But I'm gonna leave this part off that way, because this thing's been on there since 2002, so I'm expecting it to be difficult. So get back in here with your extension, find your bolt, and then you just want to break it loose. Alright, we're going to have to get the gun on it. So I'll go get my, some of these you're going to have to break loose with an impact gun. That's just how it goes. Yep, we're going to have to get those broke loose with an impact gun. I'll spray them down though to kind of give them a fighting chance to survive. Yep. So I'm going to have to go get my 13 millimeter deep socket for my gun. And we're going to have to break it loose that way, because these things have been there in there a minute and I'm not going to take all day messing with them. So let me go grab a... Alright. Joys of power tools, everybody. 13 millimeter socket for my impact. Impact set to nuclear. I need to see if I gotta put an extension on this thing. I do not. thank goodness. So we could just be able to put it on there and just get it out of there. Now, if these bolts break off, which is highly unlikely, but if they do make replacements, and I can have them here in a few minutes because they're local. I checked on that when I was ordering the parts for this car. I don't know why I always have problems getting my sockets on my gun, but that's a problem for another day. All right, so get back up in here with your gun. Find the bolt. Lock onto your bolt and hit the trigger. There's that one. And let's see, we got to get this top one now. That came out pretty easy too. Look at that. Yeah, we got orange Loctite, so we're gonna have to put orange Loctite back on them when we put them back in. Fortunately, I did buy some orange Loctite, so. This bolt's offset because of this knuckle right here, so you can get to it without having to take the knuckle apart. Because there are some of these where you got to take the knuckle apart. You know what? As easy as that was to get out of there with the gun, kind of wonder if I got Big Bertha on there, if we could break it free with Big Bertha. I kind of wonder if maybe we could do that. So let me see here. I might be able to do it without an extension. My gun won't fit back in there, so we gotta improvise. And if I get this axle free up, we could get that. How about we fire up the air compressor and see if we can get this thing to press back. That'll help us out a lot. All right, stand by. Well, I put the nut back on it and tried to hit it with the air hammer, and it's a no-go situation, so we're going to have to just do is what we were going to do to begin with here, which is get these bolts out. And then, of course, the axle will come loose after the fact, which is always how it happens. So we'll have to just work with that. I'm trying to figure out the best course of action here. Because I wish this axle shaft would shove back, because if this axle shaft could shove back, then my socket would fit flat on the bolt like it's supposed to, and then we can get the bolt out. But I probably can get it with the 13. I have to go get my adapter for it. See, I can use this socket on it and go get my adapter. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to go get the adapter. So. Oh, okay, we got to use the swivel on it. That way we can get back in there where we need to be. That's why you got the swivel. Sometimes you don't need it, but a lot of times on these GMs you do. Get in here and you just get your socket on here, and then you just pop it loose. See, just like that. Now when you get it broke loose, you can put your swivel on the end of your impact, your tool here, and zip it back out. That way we're not sitting here all day cranking on it. So all you gotta do is get it loose, and then you can get it out like this. Now you pile of crap. Get on there, quit being stupid. There we go. Oh, yep, you're gonna be stupid, so we're gonna have to put the straight one on you here. I might have to go get another bolt for this if this thing keeps chewing it up. All this for 3 stupid bolts. There it is. There's bolt number 2. Let's see how bad we chewed it up. Because I'm pretty sure we chewed it up pretty bad. Nope, not bad at all, really. And again, orange Loctite. So, rule of thumb, if it's got Loctite on it when it comes out, it gets Loctite on it when it goes back in. Except for if it's red Loctite. If it's red Loctite, it does not get red Loctite when it comes out. It gets, get you up here so you can see what we're doing here. We're getting ready to unplug our connector. So, your connector, it sits down here. You push back, pull it out like that, and then this metal clip right here is for the hub bearing, so we got to get that out. So let me go grab a flat screwdriver. We'll pop that clip out of there, and then your third bolt is right back here, right in here where my finger is. So we got to get that broke loose, and then we beat this sucker off. We're gonna leave our hub nut on to kind of make sure this thing doesn't launch at us, because it might do that. But we got to get this clip off of here so we can get this. See, here's your wiring right down here. Yep. You can't see anything, so it's okay. All right, so let me go get a screwdriver. We'll be right back. Oh, never mind. I already got one. Look at that. I had one sitting here the whole time. Didn't even have to get up. All right, take a screwdriver down in there, pry down on that clip like this. I'll go over here on this side so you can see it, because it works either way. And you take your hand and you just shove it down, or you can pop it off like this. I've done both ways, because that retainer, it sits inside of this bracket right here, so you gotta make sure you get it off the bracket. Of course, this clip here, if we're lucky, the new one comes with it. If we're not lucky, we're gonna have to figure out how to reuse that one so that our cable doesn't go bouncing around everywhere when we go to put everything back together. So let me get you back up in the frame here. All right, so our third bolt sits down over here on the knuckle. So let's go ahead and get our wiring out of the way so we don't nail that with our tools. And then, let's see, how are we going to go about getting this one out? I think we're going to do this one similar to the way we did the last one. See, our third bolt sits right up in here, right there. And we could probably get it with a 3-inch extension, or with our, we could probably get it with this. Yeah, let me see. No, I don't like how that fits. It's, whenever you use the socket, you need it to fit like dead on. So let me go grab a 3-inch extension and swap it out from that 6-inch, and then we'll put Bertha on it and get it broke loose. So put our Bertha unit together. Find a good spot that we can break this thing loose from, because I'm thinking we could just lock onto it and just pull on it, pull it over like we did on the other one. Get our socket on there. All right, there we go. And just go ahead and pull back on it. It'll come loose like that. It just broke free. Watch your hands on this strut though, because the strut will get you. I'm taking my hand, I don't know if you can see it very well in the frame, but I'm taking my hand flat when I push on it that way, because if you grab it with your hand like this, you're going to go right into the sharp corner on this strut, and I promise you, you don't want that. So when you go to relieve the pressure, relieve the Loctite off that, you want to keep your hand flat against the bar as you push up on it. That way it doesn't smash your thumb or your finger and cut you open, because that sucker is sharp. So you want to be very, very careful. Then you get your socket on here like this, and you zip it right on out. Now, because at this point the axle should be free. Normally it would be free. So all you'd have to do is just grab this and pull forward. However, ours does not want to break off the axle, so what we have to do is we have to beat this off. So we're going to try just hitting it normally with the hammer. If that don't work, we're going to try to open up a spot where we can get it with the crowbar. Should pop right off, because I've never had one of these that was real stuck. Don't damage your backing plate, whatever you do, because you need that backing plate. So we're going to smack it like on the side, and it should break free. We'll find out. Here it comes. There it is. Still attached to the axle though, so we're going to have to break it free of the axle somehow. I got a couple ideas. I don't know if any of them will work though. We might have to go get one of those. I got an idea. We're going to try to get this axle out of here. So we got a couple options. Let me go grab one. I'll be right back. So what I've done, because our axle shaft is being stubborn, is I've taken a 2-jaw puller and I've hooked it to the back side of the hub bearing. We're going to press on that dot in the middle of the axle shaft, and we're going to get this thing to come loose. As soon as I get a socket big enough to fit that. Again, we're leaving our nut on our axle shaft so that this thing doesn't go launching off towards us. So our jaw is a 15. We're going to use just our blue socket on it. We're going to use blue on it here. We're just going to pull it off the hub bearing, or pull it off the axle. This is how you separate it when it doesn't want to come off on its own. All right, we got to back it up because we're bending. So we'll reverse it and we'll recenter it, and then we'll go after it again. It seems to be moving, so if you got a 3-jaw, I thought I did. Actually, let me go see if I do have a 3-jaw, because a 3-jaw, you could lock the top jaw here, put the 2 on the side, and then it'll pull better. Let me go see if I have a 3-jaw, and then we'll finish pulling this off. Well, unfortunately, I do not have a 3-jaw, so we're going to have to make this work. If it gets to the point where it's going to end up bowing down too far, we're going to have to readjust it, move it somewhere else. This one does the job okay, but I think we need the bigger puller, because it does not want to come off that axle shaft for nothing. go get my bigger puller. Aren't you glad I brought you along for this adventure? Because I'm pretty sure somebody out there somewhere has struggled with this. Make sure your jaw's locked on about as best you can get it. Make sure you get some tension on it so it doesn't come apart. Alright, so I think we're good to go here. Let me see if it's the same size as the small jaw. Nope. This one's going to be a 17. I'll grab my 17 and we'll see if we can get this axle out of this hub bearing. I hope the tie rod ends aren't nearly as bad as this is, because this is starting to become a real ordeal here. So we went from a 13 millimeter to a 3/4 inch socket, which is probably a 19 if you want to go metric with it. Make sure that your grabbers stay intact while you tighten this down. You want to get it down to where it's nice and tight, and then you can start wrenching on it with your ratchet. If this don't do it, I'll have to go and rent the 3-jaw puller from my local parts store, which is always an option if you have to take it. These things can be a right pain in the butt. I've never had one stuck before, so this is the first for both of us. I've never had one stuck, so this is all brand new to me. I don't know if any of you guys out there has ever had this problem before, but trying to figure out why this thing won't tighten down. There we go, and that's tightening down. You got to hold this on, otherwise this bottom jaw wants to fall off. That and if you look at the puller, it's offset, so you got to kind of hold it in one spot while you tighten it down. So there's a lot of grabs and a lot of holding here, but if it gets the job done, that's all that matters. There it comes. I think it's coming off. If not, we're about to have it come apart. Yeah, I might have to go get the 3-jaw. Yep. Another alternative is they make a slide hammer that you can get from the parts store for a rental. You can get a slide hammer. It comes with a bolt that goes on here like this, and you just pull back on it and it pops it off. I don't want to do that method because it's already unbolted from the knuckle. So what I want to do is I just want to push the axle shaft into the car and pull this off of it. So we got to do that. That's what we're trying to get done here. So let me go grab some tools from the rental counter and I'll be right back. Okay, so in the event that you can't get the hub off the axle shaft, they actually make a tool for that. And this is what it is right here. The way this works, if you've never used one before, it's pretty easy. It comes with your attachment here, which you gotta line up. Sometimes you can get all the hub bearing, all the hub on it, sometimes you can't. We gotta take our nut off because we gotta get this thing to secure down. So let's pull our nut back off. Make sure our threads don't get all gooped up. Alright, so the way this works is you line it up the best you can so that you want that, they call it a jack screw. You want the jack screw to fit. Oh, lovely. Our tree's falling apart behind us. So you want to get your jack screw started, and you want it to be inside that center section. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your lug nuts and you're going to attach the outer collar to the hub with your lug nuts. But you want to get this jack screw lined up first, because if it doesn't line up, it's not going to pull for anything. All right, so we got lined up. Grab a lug nut, put it on one side. A few threads are fine. Now, if you're lucky enough to get two bolt holes on the other side here, then you're in good shape. Sometimes you're only lucky enough to get one. So you want to just tighten these up just a little bit. Make sure it's centered on the hub bearing. And then I think this is the same size as our jaw puller, 3/4 inch. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just ratchet this thing until it comes off the hub bearing, or until it comes off the axle shaft. And this is how you do it. We could probably do it with an impact gun and probably get a little bit further in. So let me grab a 19mm for the impact gun. Actually, we don't have to do that. We have our adapter here. So we can put our adapter on our impact gun. As soon as I find it. If you use this with an impact, be very careful. Alright, so this is how you do it with an impact gun. There it is. There's your hub bearing. That thing was on there good too. So now we got to get our tool off of our hub so we can finish pulling this hub off of here. Sometimes you have to do this when they don't want to come apart on their own, which is unfortunate for this thing because I would have preferred it come off on its own. But when you pull your tool off, you put it in your box. And you got to move this to one side so you can get this line out of here. Now, a lot of these cars, usually what you'll do is you'll take the metal clip off. But this one you can't. Or I think you can, but I don't know. So you pull your hub bearing off the axle shaft, and you push your axle back to your, we got your backing plate in the way too, so we got to shove this back, and then grab your bearing, and you pull your, oh, it's caught on the, oh, I see, okay. There's going to be somebody in the crowd going, why don't you just cut the wire? Well, because I don't want to cut the wire. I can already tell you the bearing's no good, but I don't want to destroy it. I just want to get the damn thing off the car. There we go. Remember how this goes on, because you got to put it back on the way it came off. Goes like this. There's your hub bearing. Yep, she's rough. You can't hear it on camera because of the noise outside, but she's rough. Yep, we picked the right bearing to change. All right, now what we want to do is we want to inspect our axle shaft, and we want to get some lubricant on it. Probably ought to take some emery cloth and clean them threads up on it a little bit, because it should not have been that difficult to get that off of there. So let me go grab one of our I'll show you how I clean this up. So we got to clean the inside of this knuckle up too. So if you want to, you can take a rag and wipe this out first. But let me go get some brake clean. We're going to clean this up the right way, so I'll be right back. All right, let's get this cleaned up. I got some brake clean and a gray Scotch pad. I felt some rust in here, so that's why I got the Scotch pad, because we're going to clean up the axle a little bit to make it easier for the other hub bearing to fit in. That, and I want to get this out again one day if I have to change this axle shaft, which I'm hoping I don't ever have to do. But if I do, I want to be able to get it back off again. Yeah, see, now I don't feel any rust on it anymore. We can take our brake clean. Clean all the rust off of it. take our Scotch-Brite pad, get it inside here, and just kind of clean out the inside of this knuckle. Now if you want to take the time and pull the drive shaft out and run a wire wheel through here, you can, but I'm not going to go through all of that, because more likely this is one of them drive shafts that's got the leaky seal on it, that when you pull the drive axle out to change it or to do any kind of maintenance on it, you have to change the seal. I don't have a seal. You just want to clean this out in here best you can. If you can get it nice and shiny again, go for it. But if you can't, get as much of this crap off as you can. You don't want to use sandpaper in here because you'll scratch it up. And you don't want to scratch this. You just want to knock the dirt off. Get as much of it cleaned off as you can. And then we'll take your rag and you'll wipe it down again with the rag. See, I got most of it off. We got to get this outer edge here because that's where our backing plate rides. You might see this white stuff up here on the knuckle. That's called corrosion. That's salt. That's what salt does to aluminum. This is an aluminum part right here. Or as I should appropriately call it, cast aluminum. So that's what aluminum does, or salt does to aluminum. That's why you are encouraged, if you live in the salt belt, you want to clean your car up as often as possible. Get that water in there and get all that salt cleaned off so that you don't have these problems anymore. Now, because we had problems getting this off, I'm going to get some brake grease. I'm going to put some brake grease in the threads. Then we need to get our orange Loctite so we can get our hub bearing bolts ready to install. And then of course we got our backing plate we got to put back on. So the backing plate goes like this. So you want to make sure that goes on first. And of course you'll have a bolt going through it to hold it in place, so you don't have to worry about it coming off. So let's get our hub put back on. So let me go grab what I need for that, and then we'll get our hub back on. Alright, so we got our orange Loctite. That's for our bolts that goes back into our hub bearing. There is a torque value, but I don't know how you're going to be able to torque these bolts because there's limited amount of space in here. So I just want to put a little bit of grease around my spindle here, around the axle shaft. Don't worry about the threads because the threads are okay. They're supposed to be rough to tighten up because of the nut there, so it'll be all right there. All right, so let me show you our part number for our hub bearing. Here's our part number for our hub bearing. And it comes complete with instructions, including a torque sheet. So this is a 99 to 05 Grand Dam. First design nut, which is a pack nut style, painted black, which this one's actually rusty, but it'll work fine. Torque value on that's 284 foot-pounds to 384 foot-pounds. I don't have anything that goes up that high, so we're going to have to just ugga-dugga the crap out of it. Even though it says on the top of the sheet, do not use impact wrench. But you do what you got to do. 284 foot-pounds is a lot of torque. Okay. Here's our new hub bearing. This little piece of plastic comes off. That is not part of the bearing. I know somebody in the comments is going to ask about that, so I figure I'd just let you know ahead of time. There's no core charge on this, so we don't have to worry about taking a core back. And like I mentioned previously in the video, the bearing comes with a brand new metal clip. So how we do this is is we got to feed this side down like this. So what we got to do now is we got to pick this up, feed this connector through, get it through the other side. Once we get it through the other side, then we can put the axle up on the, there. We can do it this way too. I got to get the grease off my hands. All right, so we got to pick this up, slide this connector through. You may have to shove it to get it through, but you can get it through because they did it to put it in here. There we go. There it is. All right, we got our connector through. So now that we're on our, we got our connector into the car, we got to get our axle lined up now. So what we got to do is we got to get it off the splines, and then we got to rotate this thing like that. Get it lined up best you can. And then we got to shove this thing back on the splines. After we get our, we got to get our backing plate here working right. And then we can get our axle on here. We can, if you want to, we can stick a bolt through the backside and kind of act as a guide like this. We gotta make sure that we're in our axle. If we're not in our axle, this thing's not gonna do anything. So what you have to do sometimes is you gotta rotate the, get it lined up where you need it to be, and then turn your bearing until it locks into the axle shaft. Like that. If you got it locked in all the way, it'll slide down all the way. Then you just gotta rotate your axle, your bearing part, over to the bolt hole. And then as long as you can get to the bolt hole, you gotta get your backing plate lined up, and then you can push it up like that, and then you can put your bolt in. So we need to get some hardware in the top of this thing to hold it in. So we got to get, first off, we're going to put a bolt in the bottom. Actually, yeah, we're going to just let it go like that for a minute. We got to get some Loctite on our bolts. So let's get our orange Loctite together here, and we'll put a little bit of orange Loctite here on these threads. You don't have to do a lot, just a little bit. A little dab will do you, like that. See, that's all you need. And then that'll go in the top bolt hole, the one that we had the hardest time with. So we'll feed that through the top. You can see that okay? Yeah, we're up here now. So I don't know what you were doing down there, but we're up here now. Get this bolt through. Once you get the bolt through, rotate your bearing to where it locks onto the bolt head, or onto the threads, and then just get your 13 socket and just start putting it away. Get our swivel head on there, and we'll just go ahead and we'll just sometimes you got to hold the axle back so you got all your space. There we go. And now we got some threads in it, but I gotta make this thing work better. What's that 14 doing up here? Let me find my sockets, and then we'll get this tightened up, so give me just a minute. All right, now we're set up. I had to find my tools. So let's go ahead and start tightening this down. Now, if you get the top bolt in, the other two should drop right in, because usually you never have problems with these, but you gotta get the top bolt in, because that's the most difficult one to do. We'll go back through and we'll tighten these up later. We gotta get them in, and then we'll get them torqued, I believe these torque to 37 foot-pounds, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know the exact torque spec on these, but I do know that I'm going to tighten them down as tight as I can get them. Call that good. Yeah, start these by hand, and then you can use your air or your electric tools and tighten them up. There's that one. We got the one on the end board here to get. So let's see, we got 2 short bolts. Here's the bolt we need for this thing. Real easily will you figure out which bolts go where on this car. Somebody in the comments are going to go, you should have known better, but you know what? It happens. And you take your bolt here. Try this again. Yeah, see, this one sticks out a little bit so that you can get some thread started on it. All right, now we can drive this one in. Yep, that one's in. That's all we needed right there. Now we'll go back through with our blue ratchet right here. Granted, it is not a torque wrench, but we're going to just tighten them up as tight as we can get them. Normally I would torque these, but I don't know the torque value. Okay, there's that one. Get the 2 easy ones first, and then we'll go after the hard one. Find our bolt here. Yeah, always torque these. If you have torque values, always torque them down, because you don't want these coming loose on you. That and the torque value also aids in the Loctite sealing properly. So you want to make sure that you get your Loctite sealed properly. All right, we're tightened up now. Okay, so let's see. This point, we would go ahead and put our lock nut on. So we'll go ahead and we'll tighten our lock nut up. 284 foot-pounds is a little bit much. Let me see if it gives us an alternative spec. Grand Am. We're going to do it this one, 173 foot-pounds. That sounds a little bit more reasonable to me. This looks like it used to be a gray nut anyway, so this is the second design. Apparently, Grand Am between 99 and 05 had 2 different lock nuts for the axle. So this is an 02, so I think by now they've gone to the gray style, which is 173. I can do 173. So let's go ahead and get this tightened up. All right. Now that my ears are starting to ring. Ugh. Hate when that happens. We're just about done here, folks. We got to get that torqued. All right, we got to do our split torque. So we're going to do split torque on this. We're going to do 73 on the first pull and 100 on the second pull. And that will usually do the trick. So let's go ahead and do 73 on the first pull. And then we'll do 100 on the second pull. And then all right, let's go ahead. There's that one. Roll it up to 100. We'll do 100 on the second pull. All right, there's 100 on the second pull. Ready to go for that one. There's 100, 173 foot-pounds, as prescribed by instruction. So from this point on, you just go ahead and do the reverse of installation. You'd go ahead and put your rotor back on, put your brakes back on, all that. But I've got to get this tie rod end changed because it is a disaster. So I'm going to leave the rotor off so I've got room for everything. You do want to take a minute and take your ABS wire, put it back in the connector clip for the, you want to plug it back in. So you want to plug that in first. Make sure that's all nice and snuggied up. And then take your wire, and somewhere on this connector you want to tie your wire up. So I don't think it's going anywhere though, because we're all nice and connected up, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem. But anyway, you'd go ahead and put your brakes back together and everything. So, but I'm gonna move on to doing the tie rod ends, so we'll see you on the next one.